All right, it is 5 p.m. It is July 23rd, 2020. I'm going to call our meeting to order, and the first thing we're going to do is do the Pledge of Allegiance. So everyone please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with justice for all. All right, and we are all here either in person or virtually. I believe I heard Dr. Hopes join us. Dr. Hopes, are you there?
Yes, Madam Chair. Yes, Madam Chair.
Wonderful. Okay, so the entire board is here. And I will start with the approval of the agenda. The chair has, I'm sorry, Mr. Minor?
Okay, go ahead. I was going to move to approve the agenda.
I appreciate your support. The chair has found good cause to amend the agenda to include all items listed under agenda amendments on the July 23rd, 2020 agenda, updated July 22nd, 2020, and posted to the district website, manateeschools.net. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion and a second? Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor of the agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the agenda passes unanimously. We will move on to why we are here today for our special meeting. And it is approval to advertise a public notice for a public hearing to adopt the tentative millage and tentative budget for fiscal year 2020-2021. Madam Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I do. I recommend the approval to advertise a notice of public hearing to adopt tentative millages and tentative budget for fiscal year 2020 through 2021.
So moved.
So moved.
I've got a motion and a second. Dr. Hopes, do you mind calling yours a second? Mr. Minor beat you to it.
Yeah, I'm a partner of Mr. Minor's, so I will second his motion.
All right, thank you. So we've got a motion and a second. Now this is just the approval for the advertisements, which we went over today at the workshop in depth. They will be in the newspaper, the Herald Tribune tomorrow. Sarasota Herald Tribune, yes. Is there any discussion?
Any public comment?
There is public comment in general, but I don't believe any of it was actually on this topic.
Okay.
But it is attached to the agenda under the public comment section. There were 17 public comments today, but none of them were about this notice to advertise. Okay, seeing no discussion, I will call the vote. All those in favor of the approval to advertise, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. As I stated, there was 17 public comment today. Vice Chair Kennedy.
Yeah, this was, if you wanted to speak to public comment, if you wanted to finish your thought there.
Nope, I was just going to say there are 17. They will be attached to the record so that we've all read them, but they will be attached to the minutes.
Okay, thanks. May I?
Yes?
Okay, thanks. Board members, I just wanted to, I had kind of prepared an email and, but the superintendent just informed us during the break, or informed me during the break, that our reopening plan that was approved by the board last week has now been submitted to the state, so it's in. But what I wanted to do, I kind of framed this as appealing to my colleagues on the board who were yes votes last week. If one of you would consider at the July 28th meeting making a motion to reconsider. Now that the plan has been submitted, I'm not sure that that's required, but the thought is still the same. And what I'd like to give you, since we're here together and I can do that, are two ideas for. Superintendent already has a copy of this.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Charles.
You'll notice, on the sheet that I'm giving you, there are two items highlighted. The first says an August 17th start date for students, which is the calendar we've already approved. And you'll see there when you read it, and I'll ask Michelle to forward this to your email so you can consider it later. just to ponder, this is for the July 28th meeting, that we start the school year, the first 2 weeks of the school year, we do 100% online. And then on August 31st, that is when students would report to their selected option, whether it's at school, hybrid, or 100% e-learning. So it doesn't require a new calendar because we've already approved a new calendar at the last meeting. There's no concerns about paychecks. Basically, the school year does not change. The only difference here is that we start online. And for me personally, this I'm bringing this appeal to you because I think it would give us 2 weeks to tamp down the virus and mask up Manatee to do its work in the community and drop our numbers down. Plus, I think it would kind of do some benefit to our teachers and to our students to use that medium, the e-learning platform, in case we do have to, or certain schools have to jump to it, or classrooms, or so forth. So again, this is just for your consideration as a possibility. The second highlighted item, you'll notice it says an August 31st start date for students, and I stole this from Hernando County. I was watching their board meeting this week, and you'll remember, board members, that one of the conversations that we had last week about the calendar was the concern about employee paychecks being late. There's a link to their board meeting, and at that link you'll see their deputy superintendent talk about this idea. And essentially what they're doing, teachers would start on August 17th. This is a much more, I'll just be upfront, this is a much more complicated idea. The really simple one is the first one. We just do the first 2 weeks online. But so I don't need to explain it. You guys can read, and you can just go watch that 2-minute clip of their deputy superintendent if you'd like to. But again, like I said, 3 of the members, depending on what Mr. Dye says about what's the proper way to handle this, I'm not sure yet because, like I said, I just found out a few minutes ago that we've submitted our plan. So whether it be one of the 3 yes votes would think about it and consider bringing it back on the 28th, or we could just make, since I was not on the prevailing side, this would be a motion to submit a new plan, but I'll get together with Mr. Dye and talk about the Roberts rules and that. But anyway, this is my chance to get in front of you, and so I wanted to do that instead of springing it on you at the beginning of the meeting on the next Tuesday on the 28th. So that's it. Thanks, Madam Chair.
I appreciate that. Mr. Minor?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Can we inquire of Mr. Kennedy whether Mr. Hopes and the superintendent have seen this before our get-together here?
The superintendent has seen it. Dr. Hopes has not.
Okay. For the benefit of Board Member Dr. Hopes, could you read this so he can know what we're talking about?
I believe Mrs. Boyce is going to email him.
What?
I believe Mrs. Boyce is going to send it to him.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
It's not to be decided today. What he's asking is if one of the 3 prevailing members would like to bring this forward at the next meeting.
okay. Well,
So,
okay, well.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
yes, Dr. Hopes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Minor. I'm hearing what Mr. Kennedy is proposing, and so what I would like to do is spend a couple of days reviewing it. I think there's value in what's being proposed. Members, as you know, we're going to spend an additional week with regards to our in-servicing of principally our classroom educators, and I think that feedback is going to be critical. And, given the current trend in both incidence and prevalence, including our death rate and our ICU capacity, there certainly may be value in what's being proposed with regards to additional preparation. There will still be families, especially our first responder families and our essential employees, in the community, which will really need to have their students, in our facilities. But I think there's a lot of merit to what Mr. Kennedy is proposing, And so what I would like to do is spend a few days working with the superintendent on kind of like the logistics and the operational aspects of it, to allow for some additional time. Keep in mind that, even though we'll continue to have our teachers employed, I want to make sure that our bus drivers and cafeteria workers and other personnel do not miss a pay period because of this. But I understand where Mr. Kennedy is going with it, and there very much may be significant value in it, especially to allow time for our joint campaign between the Department of Health and the School District of Manatee County with regards to, the community working together to basically mask up and kind of reduce the incidence of this. So I look forward to working with the superintendent and her team and being prepared next week to come up with a solution that will put us in the best possible posture to start the new year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Minor?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Has Mr. Kennedy or anyone made a request of the chair or the superintendent for addition of this matter to the agenda of a meeting next week?
Mr. Kennedy did request that it get added to the agenda, from my understanding, on the next week. Is that my understanding? And
Yeah, can I?
and I said,
Well, sort of.
but I referred it to Mr. Dye because he had been on the downside of the vote. That was my.
I was just going to say the same thing.
that's right.
I had reached out to the superintendent, then I talked to Mr. Dye. We talked about rules, just like you said, I didn't prevail. So, and I agree with Mr. Dye that no matter which way I tried to work it through Robert's, I was still trying to bring something back for reconsideration that I was not in favor of. So that's why I say now that the plan is submitted, that might change the posture of it under Robert's rules. I'm not sure, but the request is the same. The feeling is the same, whether it's a new motion or if it's one of the prevailing members, whichever way. But like Dr. Hope said, we've got time to work on details and talk to the superintendent. So, but to answer the question, I had approached the superintendent with the idea. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reverend Golden?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to hear what the attorney has to say about, now that this has been submitted, whether or not that changes his mind about whether Mr. Kennedy can bring this matter back before us, because that appears to be his position. Or whether it's still in the hands of the three who are on the prevailing side.
Madam Chair, technically, under the Roberts, to get on the agenda for the next meeting, one of the persons who voted in favor of it would have to request it to go on the agenda as a motion to reconsider.
Thank you.
If that motion passes, then a discussion about different ways of doing it would be the next order of business. But if the motion doesn't pass, you wouldn't go into that discussion.
I'm asking you if the motion for reconsideration must be brought by one of the members on the prevailing side.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Vice Chair Kennedy?
Thank you. Mr. Dye, don't sit down yet. Reverend Gold, just to be clear, and to Mr. Dye too, what I was thinking, and this is just my initial thought because it was just a few minutes ago that I learned that the plan was submitted, is that it could be structured two ways. We just do exactly the question you just asked, and it's one of the prevailing members. Or, now that I'm thinking through this, it's probably the same thing, but do a motion to submit a new plan. That's a different act than a motion to reconsider.
Yes.
Although, hearing it come out of my mouth, that's still asking for it to be reconsidered
Well,
in the submission of a new plan.
I don't know if submitting a new plan is really what you'd have to do. You'd have to alter the plan you've already submitted.
correct. It's an action that's already been approved by the body. So the very first step is the people who were on the prevailing side, one of them would have to move to reconsider the action that already was approved.
Okay.
And then because if that fails, you don't even get into the argument of alternative plans.
Thank you.
I just want us to be clear in terms of exactly what we're gonna be called upon to do on the 28th.
One last shot, but it,
Yeah, it's,
but no, but the spirit, Gene, if I may, the spirit is the same. I was kind of requesting to the three prevailing members if one of them would consider,
yeah, it's,
whichever way it comes back, to bring it back, that's all. Thank you for the chance.
it's always good to seek unanimity. That's how we got in this position to begin with. And I remember that I made a very, very passionate effort to try to achieve that. And I just, I want to be clear that this effort is something that has to be initiated by someone on the prevailing side. All right. I was next in line to speak since we were talking about this. I've been trying to figure out what's really at work here. It's not the first time we've gone back and forth over things that we've decided and redecided. I seem to recall about a year ago we recalled, I think it was the student progression plan about 3 or 4 times after we had approved it, and then we went back and changed our minds. I'm just, maybe I don't understand here. We made a decision, I thought, at least the 3 of us that voted for it, based upon the health recommendations. That this was something that the superintendent had gone over with the health department, law enforcement, Chamber of Commerce, some other people, other leaders in the community. So I'm just trying to figure out how we go back and undo that. Why would we? What would be the health parameters? And I might quickly add, this is rhetorical because I spent about an hour and a half talking with Dr. Bency earlier today. And I learned some very interesting things. Number one, what was good in Hernando County doesn't apply here in Manatee County. And what happened in Texas doesn't apply here in Florida. What matters here, and we keep talking about having local control, is what we decide is what's in the best interest of all of the people in Manatee County. So I promised myself from this day, I will not tell anybody else that the schools are closed, because they're not. Our schools, our school system is open. We believe, or we believed in March, it to be in the best interest of our students to send them all home. And we did. And in March, at that time, even though the numbers were much smaller, the rate of, and I wish I could remember the word that she spoke to me many, many times today, but I'm simply going to call it the rate of occurrence, which is the rate of testing versus the rate of discovery of this code, was about 2 to 3% in Manatee County. It is now upwards of 10%, and 10% is the statewide level that we say is an indication that the COVID-19 virus is being dealt with. Since we voted, just since we voted on the 9th of July, that rate has declined by 1%, from 12 to 11. What the doctor says is that it takes about 10 days, 12 days, to make a difference in whatever decision that we have made, or to see a discernible difference because of the decisions that we have made. The decision that we made is that we would go ahead and that we would allow people who wanted to come to school full-time to come. And that people who wanted to stay home and could afford to do that full-time, we would do that. And then we offered up another thing called a hybrid version. Now, the superintendent has furnished me a copy of the percentages of parents in middle school and in high school that want to have their children return to school full-time, or that want them to return on a hybrid basis, or that want them to continue forward with e-learning. And the one thing that leapt out at me in looking at the statistics is that in our poorer schools, our inner city schools, middle schools and high schools, that the highest percentage of people who want their children to return full-time are in the poorest neighborhoods. They need to return to brick and mortar. And they have to, in spite of the dangers, because those people have to go to work to earn a living, because they can't draw unemployment, because they've so messed up the unemployment system here in Florida that people who deserve it can't get it. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do other than to try to move us in a direction that will stop us from trying to outgame each other and outsmart each other, because everybody up here is smart. Everybody up here. But the question that I have to ask is, how are we using that? To what end are we using that? None of us know how this thing is going to come out, because there is no vaccine, period. There is no cure. There is nothing that guarantees that even I will be here at the next meeting. And so it's not just teachers in this county that are at risk. It's not just teachers that have a problem, but so do EMTs, and so do firefighters, and so do the nurses at the hospital that have to keep going to work, because this virus is what the enemy is, not each other, not different points of view. I would be more than happy to change my vote to do anything if somebody can walk in here and tell me we discovered a vaccine. And until that happens, your judgment is just as good as mine. And I'm really having a problem with the fact that we just keep going round and round and round once we've made a decision. We try to make efforts to figure out how to undo that. And that's not fair to anybody. First off, it's not fair to us as a board, and it's not fair to the parents of these children who have struggled from March up until now to just hold their families together, to just pay the rent, to try. And the reality of it is, what we are doing right now, we aren't even doing properly. Our health department says to me, Reverend, if the people would just wear masks, if they would just do that, that would make a big difference. And we get distracted by that. So I'm hurting right now. I'm really hurting, because I do not understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish, other than to make the best of a bad situation. Because I specifically asked, if we delay opening the schools for 2 weeks, will that make a difference?
It certainly could.
You see, I heard you. You said it certainly could. And you know what? I earned my living using words. When you can sit there and honestly say it certainly would, then we got something.
I'm sure.
occupancy, and you can't do it.
30 seconds.
I just don't want this to become a
I
debate.
need 30 seconds. And I'll get, Reverend Golden can have the last word. I just need.
No, I don't need another word, and I certainly don't need you permitting me to have the last word. I said what I had to say.
Where does this come from? Can I have 30 seconds, please?
Well, it comes from the fact that you have sat here and put a piece of paper before me that simply says, for consideration by the yes voters, and I was a yes voter. Now, if that didn't mean anything, or if you just expect that we're gonna change our minds because you've asked us, then say so.
Where does this come? Sorry.
Okay, I know Dr. Hopes would like to speak. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond, and then I'm going to go to Dr. Hopes.
Oh, I thought you said Dr. Hopes first.
Nope, you.
Reverend Golden, all I'm asking is the 3 yes voters to consider 2 alternate ideas, period. That's all. Thank you.
It's just an ask, and I think we should just do our due diligence, as Dr. Hopes so eloquently stated. If you would like to discuss it with the superintendent about the feasibility of it, the monetary repercussions, I think that's, hey. Dr. Hopes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, look, let's try not to bring this down to a personal level. Now, I will tell you personally and professionally, I am the one that asked the superintendent to distribute to all of us the selection that parents are making about their students with regards to the options. I would have liked to have seen a mix of selections in our elementary schools, similar to what we are seeing in our middle and high schoolers. That being said, I would like to see where these numbers end up at the end of the week, now that the deadline has passed. And that may lend some credence to what Mr. Kennedy is talking about. I don't think Mr. Kennedy is talking about just undoing what we've already approved, but given the fact that we are now on a pathway in partnership with the health department of Manatee County and the school district of Manatee County to put out a campaign to encourage the wearing of masks and following CDC guidelines, there may be value in looking at the options that are selected. I believe that there are some parents, because of the way we structured the selection in elementary versus middle and high school. If you recall, the default for middle school and high school was the hybrid, which would allow us to drop dramatically the number of students on campus each day, which potentially could reduce the risk to our educators and staff. In elementary, the default was 5 days a week, brick and mortar. I, like many of you, have probably heard from parents who have both the capacity and the willingness and the interest to initially have the hybrid selection for elementary schools. It was based on feedback that the superintendent received, that she even brought that option to us because a number of families. But I believe that for whatever reason, there is some bias that has been taking place in the selection, encouraging all families to choose the 5 day a week for elementary. My personal preference and actually my professional preference would be to have seen in at least 4th and 5th grade, more parents opting for, at least initially, the hybrid 2 days on campus and 3 days online, which would allow us to sort of decompress and reduce the concentration of students in a classroom and in the building at any given time. So Reverend Gold, I don't believe we're talking about undoing what we've already done, but as I've stated and others, including Dr. Bensey, this is a fluid situation, and we need to be making decisions based on current and relevant data. I don't believe the CDC has finalized its guidance for the start of school. I think they're at near that point. Uh, but I think we owe it to the public to continue on a regular basis to monitor the situation that we're in. So it's for that reason that I leave open that window to work with a superintendent and just look at the data. Now that the numbers that should be in from parents who were told that today or yesterday was a deadline to make that option, we need to look at a school by school count. We need to correlate that with both the incidence and the prevalence of COVID-19 in those geographic areas to be able to make some of these determinations. We're really talking about taking the plan that we approved and we submitted to the state and sort of tweaking it or fine tuning it based on current data. And that's why I mentioned that there is value over the course of the next few days and the weekend to take a look at where those numbers are and what makes sense, because the more we're able to reduce the concentration of potential vectors of the virus in our classrooms, the better we're going to be able to protect our employees. And where we are today with this is, how do we best protect our employees so that they will continue to be able to serve in their capacity throughout the school year and not end up on a sick list and not be able to basically deliver education in our classrooms. So that's where we are. I think we need to take a step back and try not to personalize this, but allow us to take in the data, the current data, and weigh the cost versus the benefit of any changes to the proposal that's been submitted. I'm confident that our proposal will be approved by the department, and I believe the department understands that in any given situation, any given week, depending on what occurs with regards to the community, that we may need to make changes along the way. And I think we need to be prepared for that, because we're going to be dealing with this, next spring. I mean, anybody who thinks, come Christmas or Thanksgiving, that we're not going to have to make difficult decisions about schools and school closures and modifications of this plan is living in some fantasy or some Nirvana movie. Because members, we are going to have to be dealing with this every board meeting, because this virus is not going away anytime soon. So let's try not to personalize it. I appreciate Mr. Kennedy's diligence and determination. I don't think he's asking us to throw away the plan that we approved, but he is suggesting, for the sake of our employees as well as our families, that we use current data with which to provide the flexibility that I believe the superintendent has already built into her proposal. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Reverend Golden.
I am going to personalize this, and I'm going to keep personalizing this, because the zip codes in this community where this is most problematic is in the zip codes of Black and brown people. And not only that, the data that we've already collected lets us know that the people who most need to go back to school are in those same zip codes. So I'm going to continue to personalize this, because it is something that is very personal to the public that we claim that we're trying to help. Because all of the public is not the same, and all of the public is not impacted the same. And that is not just because of the COVID virus. This is just a manifestation of it. And we cannot ignore that. At least I won't. That's why I cast the vote like I did. And nothing has changed since then systemically in this system to try to overcome that disparity. I don't have any evidence whatsoever that there's been a decline in the number of incidences in 34208 or 34211 Palmetto, out there in Onico and in Central Bradenton. That hasn't changed. So it is very personal to me and to those people who expect us to look out for everybody. Because even the teachers that we say that we're trying to help are not being asked to do any more than the nurses are, or than the EMTs, or anybody else that is an essential worker, except those at the bars and the spas and wherever else that we've been allowed to go now. This stuff is killing people, and it is disproportionately killing poor and black and brown people. So it's very personal to me. In Manatee County. I don't have to go to Hernando County. I don't have to talk about the national trend. I'm talking about right here. So if we have information that shows that we are dealing with this and that it is eliminating the disparity because of where the frequency of this is occurring, that's one thing. But to simply sit here and say, well, we're just trying to do better by our employees, everybody's trying to do that. Everybody's trying to do that. Nobody wants anybody to be hurt. But I, for one, do not want to continue the perpetual overburdening of the least of those who can bear it. And I know for a fact that those schools that want people, that they want their children to come back, are schools in the 34208 zip code. Yeah, you can't, that is a fact, that is data. So I won't let that be ignored.
I appreciate that. I really feel like we're now getting to the point where we're debating the actual item, which has not even been brought forward yet. So my request, as I stated before, is to please take this, if it interests you, and discuss it with the superintendent. As Dr. Hopes has suggested, I think that's a valid suggestion. As we've reiterated, we want everyone to feel safe. We want to protect our employees as much as possible. And I think that we should discuss that with the superintendent. She's in contact with the health department. She's in contact with our unions. She's in constant contact with all the different pieces that need to come together. So I think if someone has an interest, I think that they should discuss that with the superintendent. And I understand Dr. Hopes has his hand up. Dr. Hopes, does he have his? He took it down.
Madam Chair, no, you eloquently presented what I was talking about. I just want to say that, Reverend Golden, we're not talking about disenfranchising. I'm looking at improving the opportunity for those students and families who really need their students in class, in a classroom, 5 days a week. But I think, Madam Chair, you have concisely presented what I was trying to articulate. I think over the course of the next few days, we each need to take the opportunity to discuss this with the superintendent regarding, the numbers and how they play out in each individual school. And we can take this up, at the next meeting. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. If there's no further discussion, okay. It is 5:38, and I will adjourn our meeting, and I will see everyone next Tuesday. Thank you.
Thanks, Gina.
Thank you, Madam Chair.